The words hung heavy in the air like a thick fog that refused to lift. "If that's who you are, then you are no son of mine," his father said, his voice cold and final as he pointed to the door of their modest suburban home in Columbus, Ohio. Alex Thompson, 24 years old, felt the ground shift beneath his feet. His mother stood beside her husband, her eyes filled with tears, but her lips pressed into a thin line of silence. In those few seconds, everything he had known about family shattered. He grabbed his duffel bag, stuffed with clothes and a few precious mementos, and walked out into the chilly autumn evening without looking back. The bus ticket to New York City was already in his pocket, bought in a moment of desperate hope days earlier when he had decided to come out. Now, there was no turning back. The long ride to the big city was a blur of tears and self-doubt. Alex questioned every choice that had led him here. Had he been too abrupt? Should he have eased them into it? But no, he had rehearsed it for months, the words spilling out during Sunday dinner after his father made yet another offhand comment about those people. The rejection had been swift and absolute. By the time the bus pulled into Port Authority, Alex was exhausted, broke, and alone. He checked into a cheap hostel in Brooklyn, the kind where the walls were thin and the future seemed even thinner. For the first few weeks, he survived on odd jobs, waiting tables at a diner during the day, stocking shelves at a grocery store at night. The city was loud, fast, and unforgiving, but it was also full of possibilities he had never imagined back home. One evening, after a particularly grueling shift, Alex sat in a small park near his hostel and pulled out his laptop. He had always written as a hobby, short stories and journal entries to process his feelings. That night, he started a blog. Coming out in the heartland, he titled the first post, "Pouring out the raw pain of his disownment without names or details that could hurt anyone further." He described the slammed door, the silence from his mother, the way his chest ached with every breath. To his surprise, the post went semi-viral among local LGBT groups. Comments poured in, strangers sharing similar stories, offering support, even a few invitations to meetups. For the first time since leaving home, Alex felt seen. He wasn't alone. Sarah, a vibrant graphic designer he met at one of those meetups, became his first real friend in the city. She was straight but fiercely ally, with a laugh that could light up a room and a no-nonsense attitude that pushed Alex to keep writing. "You have a voice, Alex. Use it," she said one night over cheap coffee. With her encouragement, he kept posting about the loneliness of city life, the small victories like landing a better job at a bookstore, and the slow process of accepting himself without his parents' approval. The blog grew, gaining followers who related to his honest take on identity struggles. Little by little, Alex started to heal. He joined a support group for young gay men, where stories of survival inspired him to dream bigger. The internal conflict raged on some nights, the voice of his father echoing in his head, but the community around him was building a new foundation. He began to see that family wasn't just blood. It was choice. Yet the nights were still hard. Lying in his tiny studio apartment, Alex would stare at the ceiling, wondering if his parents ever thought about him. Did they miss him? Or was the shame too great? The pressure of societal prejudice weighed heavy, even in progressive New York. He faced subtle stares at work, whispered comments. But he pushed through, deciding that his story mattered. By the end of his first year in the city, the blog had thousands of readers, and Alex felt a spark of purpose. He didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning of his transformation. The doubts still crept in during quiet moments, but each new follower comment reminded him he was building something real. He started volunteering at a local LGBTQ youth center on weekends, listening to teenagers who reminded him so much of his younger self. One boy, barely 18, told him through tears that reading Alex's post had given him the courage to come out to his own family. That single conversation shifted something inside Alex. He realized his pain could become someone else's light. The decision to keep writing wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about purpose. Sarah introduced him to Jordan Mills at a rooftop party in Bushwick one sticky summer night. Jordan was a graphic designer with kind eyes and an easy smile that made Alex forget, for a moment, the weight he still carried. They talked for hours about everything and nothing. Favorite books, worst first dates, the way the city could break you and rebuild you in the same breath. Jordan listened without judgment when Alex finally shared the full story of that slammed door back in Ohio. "You don't owe them your silence," Jordan said softly, his hand resting lightly on Alex's arm. It was the first time someone had made the ache feel a little less permanent. Their friendship deepened slowly, carefully. Alex was terrified of rushing, terrified of another rejection. They spent evenings walking the Brooklyn Bridge, sharing cheap pizza slices and laughing until their sides hurt. Jordan never pushed, never made Alex feel like he had to perform. When Alex had a bad day at the bookstore, when a customer had made a cruel remark about the rainbow pin on his bag, Jordan showed up with takeout and a playlist of songs that somehow knew exactly what Alex needed to hear. The first time they kissed was on a quiet bench in Prospect Park at sunset. Nothing dramatic, just two men choosing each other in the middle of a world that still sometimes felt hostile. Alex's heart raced, not from fear this time, but from something warmer, steadier. With Jordan's quiet support and Sarah's relentless encouragement, Alex turned his blog into something bigger. He pitched a memoir to a small publisher who had discovered him online. The advance was tiny, but it was enough to quit the night shifts. Writing the book became both therapy and torture. Every chapter forced him to relive the day his father had disowned him, the months of wondering if he was broken, the slow climb toward believing he deserved love. Jordan sat with him through the hard nights, reading drafts and reminding Alex that his story belonged to him alone. "You're not just telling what happened," Jordan said one evening as they sat on the fire escape. "You're showing people it's possible to survive it." The manuscript was accepted, and the publisher wanted a title that captured the heart of it: Shattered Illusions. Alex signed the contract with shaking hands, feeling both exhilarated and exposed. Publication was still months away, but the news spread through his growing online community. Strangers messaged him saying they had pre-ordered already. For the first time, Alex allowed himself to imagine a future where his voice mattered on a larger scale. Yet the old fears lingered. What if his parents somehow saw it? What if the world rejected him the way they had? Jordan held him through those doubts, their evenings filled with quiet conversations about boundaries and healing. Sarah threw a small celebration dinner, toasting to the man who had turned pain into power. Alex looked around the table at the people he had chosen and felt, for the first time in years, truly at home. The road ahead still felt uncertain, but he was no longer walking it alone. The book launch happened on a crisp October evening at a bookstore in the West Village. Shattered Illusions hit the shelves and, within weeks, climbed the bestseller lists. Interviews followed, podcasts, local news, then national outlets. Alex found himself on morning shows talking about identity, family, and the courage it took to choose yourself. The attention was overwhelming, but Jordan was always there backstage, squeezing his hand before the cameras rolled. "You've got this," he'd whisper, and somehow Alex did. Fame brought new pressures. Strangers recognized him on the subway. Fans waited outside events to share how his words had saved them. Alex answered every message he could, but the spotlight also magnified his insecurities. Some conservative commentators twisted his story, calling him bitter or attention-seeking. He learned to tune out the noise, focusing instead on the letters from young people who said his book gave them permission to breathe. Jordan and Sarah became his safe harbor. They celebrated small wins, his first big royalty check, the TEDx invitation, with quiet dinners and long walks. One weekend they drove upstate to a cabin Jordan had rented. No internet, no cameras, just the three of them and the autumn leaves. Alex sat on the porch one morning watching the sunrise, Jordan's arm around his shoulders. "I never thought I'd get to have this," Alex admitted. Jordan kissed his temple. "You deserve every bit of it." The moment crystallized something Alex had been building toward. He was worthy of love, of success, of peace. Back in the city, he started speaking at colleges, sharing not just the pain but the joy he had found on the other side. The crowds grew. His platform expanded. Yet success couldn't erase the empty space where his family had been. Late at night, after Jordan had fallen asleep, Alex sometimes scrolled old family photos he couldn't bring himself to delete. The ache remained, quieter now, but still present. Sarah noticed and gently reminded him that healing wasn't linear. "You're allowed to miss them and still never let them back in on their terms," she said. Alex nodded, but the question lingered. What if they reached out? Would he even want them to? The TED Talk went viral. Millions watched Alex stand on stage and speak about the day his father disowned him and the years it took to rebuild. Offers poured in, book tours, speaking engagements, even a possible TV adaptation. He and Jordan moved into a brighter apartment in Queens with room for a writing desk by the window. Life felt full in ways Alex had never imagined possible. Jordan proposed quietly one evening on the same Brooklyn Bridge bench where they had shared their first kiss. No grand gesture, just a simple silver band and the words, "I want to build the rest of my life with you." Alex said yes through happy tears. They planned a small wedding for the following spring, inviting only the people who had stood by them. Sarah was maid of honor, of course. Fame brought financial stability, but also brought scrutiny. Paparazzi waited outside his events. Tabloids speculated about his Hollywood lifestyle. Through it all, Alex stayed grounded, using his platform to advocate for LGBTQ youth shelters and mental health resources. He and Jordan adopted a rescue dog they named Hope, a silly golden retriever who greeted Alex at the door every night. The ordinary moments, cooking dinner together, walking Hope in the park, became the real anchors. One afternoon, a message arrived from an unknown number. It was his mother. "We saw you on television. We're proud of your success. Can we talk?" Alex stared at the screen for a long time before showing it to Jordan. They talked late into the night about boundaries and self-protection. Alex decided not to reply immediately. He needed time. The old wound had never fully closed, and he wasn't sure he wanted to reopen it. The book tour was in full swing when the news broke. Alex's parents had given a paid interview to a conservative cable network. In it, they claimed they had always supported their son, but that outside influences had led him astray. They demanded a share of his royalties, calling it compensation for the emotional labor of raising a child who chose a different path. Clips spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. The LGBTQ community erupted in outrage. Hashtags trended, boycotts were called, and Alex's inbox flooded with messages of solidarity. Alex watched the interview once, then turned off the TV. The hypocrisy stung deeper than the original rejection. His mother's tearful performance, his father's righteous tone. They were trying to profit from the very pain they had caused. Jordan held him while he processed it. Sarah organized a statement with his publisher. Alex refused to stay silent. He posted a short video on his channels. "My story belongs to me. No one gets to rewrite it for a paycheck." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Support poured in from celebrities, activists, and everyday readers. The community's anger grew when Alex's parents doubled down, launching a GoFundMe to help heal our family. Donations were minimal, but the damage was done. Protests formed outside their home in Ohio. Alex received death threats from extremists and love from strangers who had never met him. Through it all, Jordan and Sarah never left his side. They canceled non-essential events and focused on what mattered: each other. Alex realized the stunt had given him unexpected clarity. He no longer needed his parents' approval. He had built something unbreakable. The wedding took place on a sunny afternoon in Central Park the following spring. Jordan stood under a simple arch of flowers, eyes shining as Alex walked toward him. Sarah read a passage from Alex's own book. Friends from every chapter of his journey filled the chairs. No biological family, but the chosen one was complete. They exchanged vows, promising to choose each other every day. And when they kissed, the applause felt like the whole world celebrating their victory. In the months that followed, Alex channeled the experience into a new book, this one about chosen family and the courage to set boundaries. His parents tried one more public appeal, but the community had moved on, and so had Alex. He blocked their numbers and focused on the life he had built. Jordan's steady love, Sarah's fierce friendship, and the readers who had become his extended family filled every empty space. Alex stood on stage at his final tour stop, looking out at hundreds of faces who had found strength in his words. He spoke about forgiveness on your own terms, about love that doesn't demand you shrink yourself. The standing ovation lasted a long time. Backstage, Jordan waited with open arms. In the end, Alex found peace in the family he had chosen. But the question remains, true or false? Blood is always thicker than water?